Have you ever had a number just stick in your head? Not a birthday, not an anniversary, just a random string of digits that seems to follow you around. For me, that number was 924. It started subtly. I'd glance at the clock, and it would be 924. My grocery bill would come to 924. I'd see it on license plates, street addresses, even as the number of likes on a random social media post. At first, I laughed it off. Coincidence, right? The brain is a pattern-seeking machine, after all. But then the coincidences started feeling less like chance and more like a warning. It began on a Tuesday. I was working late, trying to finish a project. My office was on the 9th floor of an old, creaky building downtown, the kind of place where the silence at night feels heavy. Around 9:20 p.m., I decided to pack it in. I grabbed my bag, turned off the lights, and headed for the elevator. As the doors slid open, an old man was standing inside. He had a kind, crinkled smile, but eyes that seemed vacant. "Going down?" he asked, his voice raspy. I nodded and stepped in. He pressed the button for the ground floor. As the doors closed, I noticed he was holding a small, worn-out book. On the cover, in faded gold lettering, was the number 924. My heart skipped a beat. "That number," I started to say, but he just smiled that same empty smile. The elevator began its descent. 8, 7, 6. The ride was unusually slow, the air growing colder with each floor. When we passed the 4th floor, the lights in the elevator flickered violently, then died, plunging us into absolute darkness. I yelped, fumbling for my phone. The old man said nothing. I could just hear his slow, rhythmic breathing in the pitch black. The elevator jolted to a stop. We weren't at the ground floor. We were stuck. "Hello?" I called out, pressing the emergency button. Nothing. Just silence from the outside, and that slow, steady breathing from the man beside me. After what felt like an eternity, the emergency light sputtered on, casting a dim, sickly yellow glow. The man was no longer smiling. His face was a mask of sheer terror, his eyes wide and fixed on something behind me. "You shouldn't have seen the number," he whispered, his voice trembling. "It sees you now." I spun around, but there was nothing there, just the cold metal wall of the elevator. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, my own fear starting to bubble up. He clutched his little book to his chest. 924 souls, he rasped. "It collects them, one by one. It marks you with the number, and when you see it too often, it comes for you." Suddenly the elevator groaned and a scratching sound started from the outside. Not from the shaft, but from the roof of the car. Scrape, scrape, drag. It was the sound of something heavy being pulled across the metal. The old man began to whimper, rocking back and forth. "It's here," he cried. "It's here for one of us." The scratching grew louder, more frantic. Then came a loud thump right above my head, as if something had just landed. The metal ceiling of the elevator began to buckle downwards, a small concave dent forming right in the center. I stared at it, frozen, my breath caught in my throat. The dent pushed further and further down, the metal groaning in protest. Then, with a piercing shriek of tearing steel, a single, long, pale finger poked through the newly formed hole. It was unnaturally long and thin, with a dirty, jagged nail at the end. It twitched, then pointed directly at the old man. He let out a final, choked scream as the finger retracted, and the hole began to widen rapidly, ripped apart as if by monstrous, unseen hands. I squeezed my eyes shut, pressing myself into the corner, praying for it to be a dream. The sounds were horrific, tearing metal, a wet, sickening thud, and then silence. A thick, coppery smell filled the small space. I don't know how long I stayed huddled there with my eyes closed. It could have been seconds or hours. When I finally dared to open them, the emergency lights were still on. The hole in the ceiling was still there, a jagged, dark wound in the metal. But the old man was gone. All that was left was his small book, lying open on the floor. I crawled towards it, my body shaking uncontrollably. The pages were filled with names and dates. The last entry was written in a shaky, fresh hand. It was today's date. Next to it was a name, Arthur Penwright, and beside the name, a number was circled in red ink, 923. My blood ran cold. 923. The elevator suddenly lurched and began its descent again, operating as if nothing had happened. When the doors slid open on the ground floor, I scrambled out, not looking back. I ran out into the night, gasping for air. I didn't stop running until I got to my apartment, locking the door and sliding every bolt I had. I sat on my floor all night, staring at the door, waiting. The next morning I tried to rationalize it. A hallucination? A stress-induced nightmare? I had to know. I went back to my office building. The regular daytime security guard was at the desk. I asked him about the elevators, if there were any incidents last night. He shook his head. Smooth as silk all night, he said. Then I asked him about the night guard. Oh, you mean Arthur, he said with a sad smile. Poor old Arthur. He retired last week, said he was moving away. Something about being haunted by a number. Weird, huh? My world tilted. It was real. It all happened. For weeks I lived in a state of constant paranoia. I avoided clocks, receipts, anything with numbers. I changed my routines, my routes, everything. I thought maybe I had escaped it. Then this morning I was getting ready to record this very story. I checked my phone for the time. It was 9:23 a.m. A wave of relief washed over me. It wasn't 9:24. I was safe. I chuckled to myself, feeling foolish. As I put my phone down, a notification popped up on the screen. It was an alert from my building's management. A new resident was moving in today. He's moving into the apartment across the hall. Apartment 924. Thank you so much for listening. This was a difficult one to tell. If you made it this far, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories. Stay safe out there, and maybe try not to pay too much attention to the numbers. You never know which one is paying attention to you.